Please click like and click the subscribe button so you can keep getting my videos. The incompetence of the Tory government truly knows no bounds. The handling of this crisis has been utterly appalling for so many reasons. I've done a 4-part video series as to why it's been so negligent. Of course, it is true that while there is broad expert consensus that lockdowns and social distancing measures works, and from a common sense perspective they should work, and there is evidence directly in Britain that it is working, that there is a lower infection rate because we are introducing these strict measures. There have been countries such as Sweden that haven't pursued a strict lockdown policy and have allowed commerce to continue, and they seem to be doing okay. But I agree that we should be doing a lockdown, because after all, there is a lot that we don't understand about this virus. And because of course it is novel coronavirus and its death rate is not fully understood. We don't know about whether or not, although it's strongly likely that you will be immune, but it's not after you've got the virus. We don't know how long that immunity will last. Will it last for 1 season? Will it last for 2 seasons? And so forth. And we don't know if you have an antibody test and you test positive for antibodies, meaning that you've had the virus previously, does that mean that you, even if you feel fine, does that mean that you cannot spread the virus onto others? We don't know if there's going to be multiple waves of this thing, and we don't know how long it's going to be until there's a vaccine. So the government's primary response now should be to test, to contact trace, and to continue the social distancing and lockdown measures to try and contain the virus and flatten the curve. And the evidence is so far that the infection rates are lowering and that it is working. However, the Financial Times and other aspects of the media are reporting that in a complete mockery of the lockdown, that 15,000 people per day are coming into this country from our airports. That's 100,000 people a week. These people are not being screened routinely. They can even come from hotspots like Spain, America, and we are not testing these individuals routinely, and we are not forcing them into quarantine or putting any types of measures on them. This is completely ridiculous. If we are letting that many in, although that would have been a significant number, although that is of course a significant decrease in what we used to of course let in, they could be massive sources of this virus spreading. We're doing a lockdown. We're trying to contain this virus. It just seems completely ridiculous when other countries are putting travel bans in place and are not letting people, closing the border essentially, not letting people in the country. We are an island. They can only get here by boat or plane. They can't just drive into the country. And it makes a mockery of the lockdown. And it's just further evidence of the government's incompetence, it does seem. And the Financial Times lists experts that don't agree with this policy, like Paddy Mallon, who's Professor of Microbial Diseases at the University of College Dublin, who says that, quote, the biggest threat comes from cases coming back into the country, end quote. We should be assessing, recording and following up passengers coming in from areas with high COVID-19 infections. And yet we're like, no, open borders still. This is just another area where the government is completely incompetent on. Whether it comes to PPE, lockdown measures, vast swathes of this response by the Tory government has been utterly poor. I've done multiple videos on why the economic bailouts are insufficient and leave millions facing economic hardship because there are massive cracks in the economic bailouts, like the furlough scheme and like the self-employed insurance scheme, where thousands will not qualify for those schemes, and companies are going bust left, right and centre. There was a 50% increase in firms going bust in March compared to last year, and many of those staff who work in firms that have gone bust will now be facing life on universal credit instead of being able to be furloughed. And where they go onto universal credit, they receive a pathetic and completely insufficient £409 a month, which is far too low to maintain anyone's bills. They haven't implemented a rent holiday and a bills holiday, and the government's business loan scheme has only given out around 6,000 loans when thousands and thousands have applied. Only 1 in 5 of these businesses that apply for these loans actually get accepted for a loan. This is during a pandemic, an unprecedented pandemic of our modern times. And that probably excludes many thousands more because it's unclear how the data is being recorded for that. But the conversion rate is probably a lot lower in that that only includes firms that really did apply. It probably doesn't include firms that inquired with a bank and decided not to apply because either the terms were bad or they were told that they wouldn't be accepted, or they found out that they wouldn't be accepted. So only 2% of British firms have actually received a loan. And why are the banks not lending? They're not lending because they don't want to take that 20% risk. The government has not 100% backed these loans. They should underwrite them 100%. It's the taxpayer's risk ultimately. We need to get liquidity in the market to prevent businesses going bust. There are potentially millions of businesses, because we don't know the effects, the uncertainty in the market, there is potentially millions of businesses that will go bust if they're not given urgent liquidity over the next few months. And currently, these government-backed loans are not working correctly. There's not enough PPE in care homes. There's not enough PPE to frontline workers, full stop. Bus drivers are not being given PPE. Hospitals are dire. Respondents to that British Medical Association survey showed many doctors are completely running dry of PPE and are facing shortages. Testing is still completely insufficient. We're doing less than 19,000 a day, failing to reach the interim goal of 25,000 by mid-April, and it's extremely unlikely that we'll hit 100,000 by the end of April. It's a piss poor response from the government. It's very, very incompetent. The whole thing is showing this is what the Tories are like when they're in charge, and their laissez-faire attitude to everything is